You're listening to the Staffa Corner Podcast, a Staffa-tarian look at entertainment and life with your host, Greg Staffa.
My guest this episode is an award-winning performer. Her journey includes being an NBA mini mascot and taking on the role of an NBC kid reporter for NASCAR and Monster Energy Supercross series, and starring in Hallmark Hall of Fame movie A Christmas Love Story alongside Kristen Chenoweth and Scott Wolf. Her latest film, Sugarcane, was just released on Amazon Prime and Fandango at home. Lacey Katena, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So one of the things that when talking to someone that is an actor or an actress is that their parents have not really squashed their dreams, but made them get a reality check. Whenever they say, Mom and Dad, I want to become an actor or an actress, their parents, hey, let's, is this really what you want to do? There's no future in this. But when you grow up with a dad that's a professional mascot, is there any dream that isn't attainable? What was that like?
Yeah. I never really had the viewpoint of like, well, I have to get one specific job to be successful. I was very supported because my parents are both creatives. Like my mom, she's been a corporate event planner for 20 years. And so she understands the entertainment industry. And she also was a cheerleader and a dancer. So she was very creative. And then my dad, of course, is a professional mascot. And that's one of those odd jobs that, yeah, people do them, but everybody kind of forgets that that's a thing. And so I guess for my dad, it was always like, we're going to support you no matter what, but we want to make sure you get your education, because he now works in education specifically. And he's always been an educator, but he cares a lot about reading and writing and all that kind of stuff and keeping everybody educated. I guess, I don't know. That wasn't very astute of me, but yeah, it's always been whatever you want to do, you work for it and you can attain it. That's how my parents have seen it.
Very early on, you have gotten into entertainment. I mean, some of the videos on YouTube of you as a kid reporter are just, for lack of a better word, adorable. What was that like? How did you get involved in that?
So that was just a simple audition process. I think that they wanted to do one or two specs where they just had a funny kid interviewing these drivers. And I lived in North Carolina. I was local. We have weird connections with NASCAR where we knew some of the drivers previous, and we know that because my mom worked for a company that worked with the drivers a lot. And so it was just kind of weird when we eventually booked it. We got on set and they're like, "Oh, hey, Lindsay," talking to my mom, and they knew her. But it was just a simple audition process. And I was a spunky little kid. I was low-key bossy and a little mean sometimes, and that's what they wanted. So it was perfect.
And did you know, I mean, you said you had some ties to NASCAR, family knew people. Did you yourself follow in those sports? Did you have an understanding, or is this a lot of learning as you went?
I had a slight understanding, but I was really kind of flying off the seat of my pants a little bit because I knew a little bit. I knew they drive around in circles, and I knew one of the drivers, Jimmy Johnson, because we were fans of Jimmy Johnson. But that was it. We really didn't know. I didn't know much. And so when I got hired, they were like, "Okay, so we're going to have you do all this, and you're going to talk about all the technical stuff, and you're going to talk about this." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so they gave me stuff to read off of, but I also did my own research of what this is, what's bump drafting, what's all the technical aspects, how do the wheels connect to the middle part of the car and all this kind of stuff. And so when I got that job, they gave me information, and then I also did my own research because my dad was like, "You need to know what you're talking about." And I said, "And you're right." So we tried to learn as best we could.
And in doing my research, it was cute and fun, but you really took it seriously. I mean, the way you interacted with them, it was professional yet fun and enjoyable. Did you take it seriously? Was this a job to you, or is this just a fun little thing that you did?
It was a job for me. I was really dedicated. I was really into it because it was my first big thing. And that was my first time really branching out, because I had done theater for a long time. And I was like, but I want to be on film and I want to be on TV. And I was like, okay, I booked this. Now I have to hunker down, work, like figure it out and take it seriously and show these drivers that I'm no joke. And that's great because that really went along with the bit of like this kid is like asking all these funny, silly questions, and then all of a sudden it's like a comedy turn of the super technical questions, and they're like, where does this kid come from? How did she know this? And so that kind of played into the bit where I took it very seriously. But I was also very happy just to be there because NASCAR has always been a part of my life. And then it's just like a weird, like kismet kind of thing where I ended up working with them and kind of doing some great specs with them for a long time. So yeah.
So then you started making the shift into acting,
Mm-hmm.
and you started getting some roles and stuff like that. But one of the surprising things I think most people would think is that you went and changed your last name to honor your father.
Mm-hmm.
What came about, or what? And I know that you made a trip to Japan, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
What was it that made you decide to do that? And was there any any concern because you had a history, YouTube searches and stuff like that, that now
Mm-hmm.
you almost became a new person? Was there any concern how that might impact your career?
I was very concerned. I think my team and I were very concerned, but I have always felt very disconnected from my name, especially because being in middle school and getting all these like I got the NASCAR stuff right before I went into middle school, and then I got A Christmas Love Story in middle school, and everybody is mean in middle school, and so I kind of got made fun of for my name, and I got made fun of for a lot of things, and so I started not appreciating my career and my name because I didn't think I could. And so I felt very disconnected from my name. I felt very disconnected from Lacey Caroline because that just wasn't me. And we were already thinking about a name change before we went to Japan. We were trying to figure it out. We were really just, I was like trying to find anything. Like it was going to be Lacey James for a while because my dad's middle name is James. But we went to Japan and there's a whole process there that I don't know if I can talk about yet. But we ended up meeting our extended family that we didn't know we had. We There's a whole history. My dad's from Okinawa. He was born there and he moved to the US when he was 4 months old. And his mom was very disconnected from his family because she moved to the US. She didn't know a lot of English, and it was also like the 70s. And so they didn't have like WhatsApp or like FaceTime or anything like that. So they couldn't really communicate with their family. So we were pretty disconnected. And my dad and I are currently going through this journey of reconnecting with our extended family and also with our culture and like seeing how we fit and how Okinawa specifically is really deep rooted within us. And so we were there and we met our family and we figured out that our family name is Katena. And it actually is connected to the Kadena region of Okinawa, which there's a whole history there that will be revealed later on in something that I'm a part of. But it was really just like I heard that name and I kind of like I said to myself and I was like, Katena would be cool. And then I like said it out loud. I was like, Lacey Katena. Wait, that kind of eats. Like I was really, really excited about it. And I don't know, it clicked and something felt so right in that moment. And I felt like I was finding myself for the first time. And I'm young, so there's a journey of self-discovery there that
Mm-hmm.
is going to continue to happen for the next, I don't know, 20 years, whatever. But specifically that felt like the first step in the right direction. And so we decided like January 2025, we took everything down on January 1st. We revamped everything and didn't tell a soul, and there was no explanation why. And I was getting texts and phone calls being like, "Who is Lacey Katena? Who is this girl?" And I had to explain it, but it was definitely there was concern of being a new person, but I also think like I just moved out to LA, so it's good to me that I'm reinventing my image and kind of becoming that new person because I want to be able to show that I'm not a kid anymore. I am a full grown adult. I'm a working actor. And I'd like to just, if I have to, I can just build it from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. And is that, I'll just kind of go there, and you took away some of my thunder, but is that some of
Sorry.
it where, you were just turning 18? I mean, you did a little bit before 18, I believe, but
Mhm.
was this really a transition from being associated with the kid mascot and the kid reporter and the kid this kid that now this new Lacey was coming out, almost like, transforming like a butterfly, and now this young woman is coming out, and this is the new version of her. Was this kind of shedding, not out of shame or anything like that, but was this shedding the kid association that was so much tied to your past name?
I would say so. Yeah. I think it wasn't, I'm not ashamed of my past work because, little me had to put in a lot of work to get those jobs. And I'm very happy that they've gotten me to where I am. But I think that there is like this feeling of I have to be younger, I have to stay young and da 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 da. And I really wanted to kind of come out to Los Angeles and be like, okay, I'm going to figure out who I am as a person and how I fit into this industry, but also how I fit into the world. And specifically, I think Katena was the right direction. I actually just dyed my hair brown and it looks pretty cool. And so that was like another step. And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of shedding, this persona that I had for a long time. And there was like a journey of within myself realizing that the reason why I wasn't working with my craft and with my acting and all this kind of stuff was because I was putting my quote unquote like acting self, like Lacey Caroline, she was one person and I was another. And I'm kind of shedding that now and realizing that it has to come together.
You just had Sugar King come out on Amazon, and that deals
Yes.
with human trafficking. You're 18, you have the new name. Is your focus on more adult? I mean, you're at that kind of teeter-totter age where you could play a younger role or you could play a young adult. Is the name change and everything, is that changing how you focus approaching roles? Is what you're looking for more adult roles, and what's that like?
I feel like it depends because right now I'm auditioning for anything they'll give me, honestly.
Mhm.
But change the way I'm approaching roles. It's maybe just changing the way that I hold myself and like the way I carry myself into spaces and that kind of thing. Because I know that I don't necessarily look 15, 16, 17, but I also know I don't look 20. So I think it just depends on whatever fits. And there's no like specific approach. It's just I'm doing my thing and I'm trying my hardest.
And hitting 18 as a young actress, a young female actress, has that added any kind of hurdles? Is there any kind of concerns taking on more adult roles? Do you have to be a little bit more careful of what you choose? What's your mentality into going into Hollywood as a young, 18-year-old woman?
That's a really good question. I think for me, I had a lot of experience in the indie space in North Carolina, and I did a lot of short films, and I learned from a young age how to advocate for myself. I've also always been very opinionated. And so if there's an issue with something, I will say something. And thank God, because my mom and dad raised me to be that way, which it gets me in trouble sometimes, but you know what? It's fine. But I think that I'm a little bit more careful. I choose what I'm comfortable with. I don't I, if there's a feel like I trust my gut is what I'm going to say about that because I really if I'm not going to be fully comfortable portraying what is in the script then I'm not going to engage in that project if that makes sense.
Sure. And what kind of insights from your dad? I mean, your dad had a very interesting creative career. Did he give
Mhm.
any kind of insights into being center of attention and being in the spotlight like he was as a professional mascot?
Honestly, like it's weird because when my dad puts on the suit and the costume, he becomes this completely different person. And he becomes like because my dad in real life is a little bit more reserved. He's a little bit more quiet, which you wouldn't expect from mascots. And
Hmm.
I know a lot of mascots now because are there's like this community of mascots in North Carolina that are all best friends, and that's like my parents' best friends, and I see them every single year. But I think what I learned from my dad from his like mascotting and his career is a lot of physical comedy because mascotting you can't speak. And so all of it is physical jokes and something that like what can you do with your body that can make somebody laugh and how can you put energy throughout everything you do as a way to bring a smile on somebody's face. And also like close up magic. He did close up magic for a while and so I was like really into that. But yeah, mainly I think physical comedy, and I've never been scared of like a big crowd because of him, and because seeing him perform in front of thousands and thousands of people in a stadium every single night for most of my childhood, and just seeing how much everything he did made every single person in the room smile. I think that was really just what I learned, was this not having stage fright and then physical comedy.
And you had mentioned that when your dad, put on the costume, he kind of became someone else, that he was able to kind of open up and be, maybe a little bit more silly than he might be more reserved in real life. Would
Mm-hmm.
you say that having a name that is Lacey who you are, or is that also somewhat of a costume persona that you put on as an actress? How much of what you do as an actress is the real you?
I think when I was younger, she was definitely a costume. Um, because I mean, I was 12, 13, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I just kind of put on this costume. I put on this voice. Like I would talk a specific way, and that wasn't me. But now, moving out to LA by myself, taking classes and learning a lot about just like acting in itself. And I think learning a lot about myself. If I say self one more time, I think I'm going to lose my mind, but it's all me now. I've definitely learned that if I do things by leading with me and not leading with a costume or a face or something like that, it it's more genuine and it's more successful, because and I also feel more gratified in myself because I'm not trying to be someone else, which is nice, because I that's definitely a problem that I see a lot, but I know that I'm trying not to fall into that for sure.
And I don't want to make you sound like you're this doting young woman, but making that move to Hollywood, being 18, there's a lot of pressures out there. There's a lot of, you hear stories about the young, lifestyle of actors and actresses. How do you stay grounded, especially now that you're like you said, by yourself?
Mm.
How do you stay focused in what you're doing?
Well, I have a job, so that keeps me pretty grounded because I gotta go to my 9 to 5 every day. But also, I think like I keep a pretty strong connection with home. Like my best friends are at home, so I try and keep a connection there. And I find good people out in LA, and I hang out with them as well. But also, I don't go out a lot. I know there's like a an LA lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. I I like to stay home, and I read a lot of books on acting, and I'm trying to be better about finishing one book a month. And so I come home and I read my books, or I come home and I do go to a lot of classes too. So I think it's more educational for me because I didn't go to college, and I don't plan on going to college till later in life. So this to me is my acting school. And this to me is my opportunity. Okay, I'm going out there. So I'm going to learn everything I can to succeed as best as possible, and I'm gonna like lock in. I think that's my mentality. And I still spend time with people. I go out. I love going out to brunches and that kind of thing. But it's more I I'm really focused, and I just try and stay with my focus, if that makes sense.
Now, you mentioned that you have a 9 to 5 job, and I don't want to divulge into that what you do there. But is that a hindrance on getting roles because you have to be at work tomorrow, but there's an audition? How do you find that work life balance of what you want to do, but also paying the bills?
It doesn't necessarily hinder anything. It's definitely can get exhausting when I go to work and then I come home and I have like two auditions, and then I've got this and then I got that, and sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. But I think my job is thank the Lord for my job, because they are so flexible with me and they're very nice, because I had to travel to South Carolina to film something, and they were like, okay, that's fine. And it just coincidentally like lined up with a family vacation. So I would be gone for a month, and they were like, yeah, go ahead and then just come back. So they're very flexible with me, which I'm very thankful for. But I have this job where I can go over my auditions during the day, and I have like friends who can read with me at night. So it it's pretty flexible, and also like I find ways to work around it, if that makes sense.
You had a very successful young career. Most actors will say that, they got their start doing a single commercial. or they, made an appearance on this or that. But I mean, you were at all-star games, you were at, NASCAR events, Monster Energy, Supercross events. How did that help you as far as, I mean, you talked about being comfortable in front of large adults, but what other ways did that help you be successful at such a young age? And how are you able to translate that into being an actress?
Hmm. I think to me, I was able to read the energy of the crowd really well. And I was able to figure out what was working and what wasn't in the way of like a stand up comic. You know, how they have to kind of pivot their set based on their crowd and that kind of thing. That's kind of what I did with my hosting. It's like, okay, this bit didn't land. Now we have to change it, change the way you're speaking, change this, and just kind of working through finding what works and what doesn't. And that's kind of like the crux of the scene, is what I'm realizing now that I'm in classes. But it's like when I'm in a scene, if I'm my main goal is to affect the other person. And if that's not working, I have to pivot and try something else. And so I think with my hosting and with like live arena hosting, you have to find what works and what doesn't. And if the crowd isn't giving you what you want, you have to change what you're doing, because it's not the crowd, it's you. And so I think that's definitely where that's a good skill that I learned from that for sure.
Has it been hard growing up doing the kid stuff where you had, like you said, that immediate reaction, that immediate response to now doing something like an Amazon Prime or, another film or the Christmas love story where you do it in front of, the director and its cast, but there's not that immediate response for months. Has that
Mhm.
been a hard transition to go from instant reaction to having to wait?
I haven't exactly had that transition yet. Like, since Sugarcane is just out now, I don't know what the reviews are. I haven't like I'm trying not to look at it because I know myself, and I know that if I get too caught up in what people think about it, then I'll just like freak out. But it's definitely interesting because I did start in theater, and I started in like comedy theater. And so if somebody I don't know, it's now I got immediate gratification from the audience, and I knew what I did, and I know that worked. And then coming here, doing a feature 2 years ago, and now it's coming out, I'm like, "Is it gonna work?" Like, I don't know, and I think I'm more just excited about, like, learning what I did and what I could do better, and the transition, I'm excited about it, I'm trying to be positive about it because I don't wanna get in my head, you know?
Doing the kid reporter stuff
Mhm,
has to be inspirational to young kids, young girls, young boys. I mean, that's every kid's dream, is to be on the court of a NBA basketball team, front and center talking. What kind of advice would you give to young kids looking at getting into acting, getting into being a mascot, getting into the entertainment industry in some sorts? What's the biggest takeaway that you've learned from it?
my biggest takeaway, I think I have 2. The one that sticks with me the most, and I know this can sound corny and everybody says it, but like, be yourself. And I know as a child, you don't know who you are yet. And that is a journey of self discovery, and that'll take time. But it is so important to lead with you and with your heart, and you're not trying to be anybody else, because that won't get you anywhere. You're going to succeed and you're going to flourish when you are yourself, and it's going to make you feel the best. And then I'd also say, oh, geez, what's the second one? Oh, study up, learn as much as you can about the craft, and learn as much as you can, and figure out what works for you, because there are so many different methods and all that kind of stuff. And I'm still in the process of learning that, but learn everything you can about anything really, and like try things. And if they don't work, don't get discouraged, because failure is a part of life and failure is a part of succeeding. And so you try a method, it doesn't work. Okay, go to the next one. See what fits with you and what clicks with your body and your soul. And I think that that will help you succeed from if I would have started doing what I'm doing now at 12 years old, I would be so much farther. But, can't go back and change that now. I can only go up from here basically.
Was there any, I don't want to say regrets, but was there any lingering emotion to having all the kids stuff? Did you feel like that held you back in any way as you tried to transition into a young adult? or did the name change really kind of separate the two? Did you feel like
No,
you were
not
kind
at
of
all.
tied to that?
I'm like, I felt that way when I was like 14, 15, 16, but everybody feels like everything's always like, I felt like the world was ending at 14, 15, 16. The world did not end. Everything's okay. But I think specifically so focused on like everybody sees me and everybody cares about so much of what I'm doing and I was so panicky about it. And then I realized nobody cares. Um, and I'm very had negative feelings towards it for a long time, but I think now I'm like, I'm grateful for it because it got me where I am. And it also taught me a lot about being on set and etiquette and how to interact with people. And I've always been really good at interacting with adults because I'm an only child. And so my parents would take me to their office and I would talk to all their coworkers and that kind of thing. So I think that like I'm more grateful for it now than I was before, but I'm for sure, I don't see it as a hindrance. I just see it as a stepping stone, if that makes sense.
Sure. Now, anytime someone does interviews, it's always kind of nerve wracking because you want to ask the right questions. You don't want to offend anyone. You
Hmm.
don't want to cross any lines.
Hmm.
And so, what I did was I figured the best way to find some of those questions is to watch some of your interviews and get some of your questions that you ask people,
Oh my
figuring
gosh.
they have to be okay because you asked them. So, these next few are some that you have asked.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. This is like a time travel. This is crazy. Okay.
exactly. What's your favorite color?
Oh, burgundy.
See, now people are going to go back and watch when you ask that question. You actually gave that answer, and they'll have to see what it is.
Oh yeah. It's definitely gonna be different now for sure.
What's your least favorite chore?
Least favorite chore. Oh, I don't like mopping. That really I like what happens afterwards. Like I like the feeling of being clean, but I don't like the process of mopping as it's happening.
Okay. And again, these are your questions. So anyone thinking, wow, this podcaster is asking some really weird, silly questions. These are just things that you asked other people, so I figured they were safe to ask. Do
Guys,
you
I was
like
12.
do you like broccoli?
I love broccoli, especially with some olive oil, salt, pepper, butter, and some lemon juice. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Okay. It's a little bit early for you, but did you make your bed this morning?
Oh, I didn't. Oh, you got me. I didn't.
Okay. In 2020, you were asked at a Supercross event if you ever rode. So this was, 5 years ago. You said
Hmm.
no, but you wanted to. Have you yet?
No, I haven't. I think like going to, and I have like cousins with dirt bikes, and I was always like, oh, I'm gonna go do that, and I just never did.
This one you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But who is the most famous person on your cell phone?
Oh, my cell phone?
Yeah.
Oh, nobody. I don't have a lot of people on my phone. I think it's more like Instagram based, but I think I don't have any. I don't have any famous people on my in my contacts.
All right. Well, that does it for the painful reminder. I just thought it'd be fun to turn the tables on you a little bit and ask some of the
Not
things.
painful at all. I thought that was great.
It was cute when you were 12 and stuff like that, but also you were asking adults. And so I figured now that you were an adult, it was fair game to ask you some of the questions that you asked of others.
Yes, I
Um,
love it.
but now going forward, you said
Mhm.
you had a couple projects. I'm guessing you can't talk too much into them. Is there anything you can shed light on?
Can't really talk about a lot. There's a lot in pre-production, but I was just in a Big Lou vertical called Beach House Butler that should be coming out in midsummer, and so that'll be fun. But other than that, everything's kind of in the works, and it's a little hush hush. So there's things coming, but I can't say.
Lacey is the new improved Lacey is a evolution of our young child to a young adult. We always hate saying, what do you hold for the next 5 years, but what is kind of your path that you're looking at for you? What would be success? What's your kind of drive?
I think I eventually I would like to win an Oscar. Eventually, down the line, I want to be creating like thought-provoking films and cinema, and that's something I want to do as I continue moving on, because I'm a producer as well, and so I want to produce my own stuff. But I think success for me would just be a working actress and like having a steady job and being able to have a good work-life balance with my craft and with my career, and finding my family in Los Angeles. And I think just being able to live and work and be proud of what I'm doing, that to me would be success.
Now, you've hinted at some of this answer, and so I don't know how deep you want to go into it, which is totally fine. But it seemed like your trip with your dad really opened your eyes to yourself, your heritage, your your past. Is that something that, as an actress, you're looking at diving down more into, finding a story to tell that is central around that? Is that something that you want to bring more to the light? I mean, when someone looks at you, they don't think, Japanese heritage, I would say. Is that something
Yeah,
that
no.
you're looking at telling?
I think that I do want to eventually tell my dad's story of his journey of moving from Okinawa to the States and then growing up in the time period that he did as a Japanese American. And he didn't understand necessarily that he was Japanese, and he didn't look like any of his siblings either. And so I like eventually want to tell his story because it's so fascinating to me. And I think I personally want to go back to Japan, and I want to meet my family. I've met them obviously, but I want to get to know them as people, and I want to find our history because there is so much, and we've learned a little, but I want to know the personal stuff, and I want to know about them and what their life was like in Okinawa, because Okinawa specifically was absolutely ravaged by the war. And so specifically I want to see how they lived their lives. And my grandmother Hideko, she died when I was, I think, 5 or 6. And so I never really got to know her. And so I want to go back to Japan to feel connected to her as much as possible and to learn about her in little ways. I don't think I'm not trying to I want to tell our story. That's what I want to do. I'm not trying to like highlight anything or fabricate anything, because that is not something I want to do. I just want to find out what's true to us and like honor my family and tell our family story, because that is something that when meeting our family, they were like, we want to continue the Katena family. We want to continue our story, and we want to make sure our family line is still going in like 20 years or so. And so that's why we've gotten close with our family, and that's why we text them sometimes and we say Happy Thanksgiving, Happy Christmas, like that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm just trying to really honor our family line, I think.
Now, your dad when he is doing what he does, he immerses himself in the mascot. We often talk about kids following in their parents' footsteps, but has your dad expressed any interest in being more visible and following in his daughter's footsteps and being in front of the camera more?
I think deep down he thinks he could, and I think I think he thinks he wants to, but he's also an author, and so his main passion is writing. And so, for example, like he has a book called Delayed Gratification that he wrote about his mascotting journey, and he's actually rewriting it right now because he's learned so much more past when he wrote it. But he really loves like writing children's books and writing. I think he's about to get into like a novel or something. I don't know. But excuse me, he's definitely thought about it. And I personally would want to put him in a movie sometime, but I don't know if he'd let me.
But even like I think a father-daughter podcast, even if you just did a few episodes talking about going back, and I mean, just his career in itself. I mean, no one thinks about being a mascot, and no one, hey, I want to grow up to be a mascot, and to do that is kind of cool and fascinating, because I
No,
mean,
it's very cool.
it's something that you don't think about, yet we never second guess it when we see it at a game. Oh, there's the mascot. There's no questioning, what's the story behind that. It just we accept it, and so to be that, I think that would make for an interesting like father-daughter podcast for 4 episodes of what the travels are like and whatnot. So,
Mhm.
but
For sure, I think he's thought about that. And we thought about making like a YouTube channel once, but it was mainly to promote his book because he's really, really passionate about writing. And so like he has his whole mascot journey in Delayed Gratification. So I'm gonna shamelessly plug it. It's Delayed Gratification by Dave Stockdill. It's on Amazon. So if anybody wants to go buy that, that would be amazing.
and I'll put a link to that along with your links on this episode.
Oh, that would be amazing. Oh my God,
So,
he'd be so happy.
so Lacey, one of the things I ask of all my guests is
Mhm.
so much of what you've done is tied. I mean, any interview you do, you're going to be mentioned as the kid reporter.
Mhm.
You're going to be mentioned as, a Christmas love story. Everything's tied to what you've done in your past. They
Mhm.
might mention your name changing or whatnot. But when you get up in the morning, go into the bathroom and splash a little water on your face, who is it that you see in the mirror?
Me? Lacey Katena? I think I just see Lacey, if that makes sense. Like now with my brown hair actually, because I got it dyed on like a few days ago. And so I'm still processing it, but I'm really seeing kind of this actualized version of myself for the first time, which is crazy. But yeah, I just see Lacey. I just see a girl trying to figure it out. Trying to figure out life, trying to figure out my craft and everything.
Well, Lacey, thank you so much for coming on. Again,
Thank you for having me.
Sugar Cane is out on Amazon Prime and Fandango at home. And then look for
Yes.
her father's book, which we'll link to the bottom there. It sounds like an interesting story from a fascinating career. And I look forward to seeing what the future has for you.
Well, thank you so much. Your questions were amazing, and I love that you brought back the NASCAR stuff. That made me very happy.
Thank you.